Imagine for a second that you are tracking this really crucial shipment for your business. You're on a tight deadline, the client is getting super anxious, and the tracking portal just hasn't updated in like 12 hours.
Yeah, that absolute panic moment we've all been in.
Exactly. So you open up a chat window to demand an update, but before your fingers even touch the keyboard to type, where's my stuff, the system just sends you a message.
Right. Proactively.
Right. It tells you that it already predicted a logistics delay based on a sudden shift in historical weather patterns over the North Sea. But it didn't just stop at an alert.
That's the crazy part.
It autonomously rerouted your shipment to a different carrier, updated your company's internal inventory forecast to reflect the new arrival time, and generated an apology email to your client with a discount code. All to just, smooth over the friction.
Which, honestly, sounds nothing like those frustrating loop-based chatbots we've been dealing with for the last decade.
Not at all. I mean, it sounds like science fiction. But here's the reality we're waking up to right now. That level of autonomous intervention is actually becoming the new operational standard.
It really is, and it represents this complete rewiring of how business infrastructure fundamentally operates.
Yeah.
I mean, for decades, we've built digital systems that just passively sit there.
Just waiting for us to do something.
Exactly, waiting for a human to input a command or ask a question. But what you just described is a system that actively manages operations in the background. It's observing, predicting, and executing multi-step workflows without, needing a human to act as the middleman.
Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking this highly comprehensive 2026 guide published by AetherLink. It's titled AI Agents for Enterprise Automation in Oulu and EU AI Act Compliance.
It's a massive document, but so important.
Yeah. It really is. So our goal today is to break down this huge leap forward, moving from basic conversational bots to fully autonomous AI agents that can, actually run a department. We're going to look at how they're reshaping the business landscape in real time.
And just as importantly, we need to explore why navigating the incoming, very strict regulatory landscape is no longer just a legal checkbox for your compliance team.
Right. It's a core survival skill for the entire business.
Exactly. If you're listening to this right now, maybe you're a CTO sketching out your tech roadmap, or a developer actively building these systems, or even just a business leader trying to chart a course for the next 5 years. You really need to understand why this shift is happening at this exact moment.
Because it's not just about playing around with cool new tech.
No, not at all. This transition is being forced by two massive, unavoidable market pressures. First, there's the adoption curve. There was a 2025 Gartner AI infrastructure report that showed 73% of enterprises are actively migrating out of that, pilot chatbot phase.
73%. Wow.
Yeah, and they're deploying production-grade autonomous AI agents by 2026. So the ground is shifting incredibly fast. And second, we have the imminent enforcement phase of the EU AI Act.
Right, the big one.
The timeline is hitting its peak, and the penalties for non-compliance are literally existential for a lot of companies. I mean, we are talking about fines of up to 30 million euros or 6% of global turnover.
Okay, yeah, those numbers will definitely get a board's attention, but let's clearly define the technology before we tackle that regulatory storm, because the terminology gets thrown around so much.
Constantly.
When people hear AI agent, the instinct is to just picture a really intelligent chatbot powered by a large language model. But we need to establish the difference in capability here.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, so to use an analogy, the difference between a traditional chatbot and an AI agent is essentially the difference between a highly reactive receptionist and a fiercely proactive executive assistant.
I love that analogy. It captures the mechanics perfectly. A traditional chatbot functions exactly like a receptionist who's been handed a very strict script. You walk up, ask a question, and they just read the pre-approved answer.
Your order is processing.
Right. You ask, what is my order status? The bot queries a database and replies, your order is processing. It can only respond to the exact specific input it's given. Its whole universe of action is just retrieving text.
And the executive assistant.
An AI agent operates like the executive assistant who essentially runs your life. You don't even have to ask them to do something. The assistant sees a scheduling conflict on your calendar for next Tuesday, proactively reaches out to the other party, negotiates a new time, reschedules the meeting, updates your travel itinerary.
And probably orders your lunch, too.
Literally. They order your lunch because they recognize you're now going to be working straight through the noon hour. The agent anticipates the operational need, connects to multiple different software tools, and just executes the whole multi-step workflow completely autonomously.
That is wild. And the way these agents are achieving that level of autonomy is through what the AetherLink guide calls multimodal capabilities, right? We're moving way beyond just typing text into a prompt docs.
Oh, absolutely. These systems are now processing text, voice, images, and video all at the exact same time.
So they're reaching into workflows that historically required human eyes and human ears.
Yeah, exactly. If traditional text-based AI is like, reading a recipe in a cookbook, multimodal AI is like being a master chef standing in a busy kitchen.
Okay, I like that.
You aren't just reading the instructions on the page, you're hearing the sizzle of the pan to know if the heat is too high, you're smelling the reduction to know when the sauce is ready, and you're seeing the color of the meat change all at the exact same time.
So it's synthesizing all that sensory data.
Right. It's that simultaneous processing that allows the agent to build context and predict a problem before the dish actually burns. And when we look at the data from a 2025 McKinsey Digital Survey of European SMEs, we really see this playing out.
What did they find?
They found that 61% of Nordic enterprises have already deployed voice agents for customer service that actually understand tone and inflection.
Wow, 61%.
Yeah. And on the visual side, multimodal agents are analyzing incredibly complex, unstructured documents, think messy, handwritten bills of lading or complex architectural diagrams, and they're cutting the manual human review time down by 68% on average. They're literally translating pixels into business context.
Okay, I have to pause here though, because as a listener, if I hear that we are giving software the eyes and ears to process information instantly and the autonomy to act on it without asking me first, my immediate thought is risk.
Sure, yeah, control.
Right. If a human executive assistant goes rogue, maybe they accidentally order the wrong catering for a meeting. If an enterprise AI agent goes rogue at lightning speed, couldn't it completely scramble a global supply chain or authorize millions in incorrect refunds before a human even notices?
It's still a fair question.
Aren't we just accelerating the rate at which catastrophic mistakes can be made?
That fear of losing control is definitely the #1 barrier holding leaders back from deployment. It's a completely valid concern about governance. But when we look at the hard financial data from companies that have actually integrated these systems, the reality is entirely counterintuitive.
Really? How so?
These agents aren't amplifying errors, they are drastically reducing them, which is leading to massive ROI. There was a 2025 Forrester Total Economic Impact study that tracked AI agent deployments across major Nordic enterprises over a 3-year window, and the operational improvements were just staggering.
Okay, let's ground those numbers because, a percentage on a page doesn't always translate to the messy reality of a business. What did that ROI actually look like for the teams on the ground?
Let's look at customer service first. Forrester documented a 54% reduction in support ticket handling time. Now, think about the scale of that. For an operation employing, say, 500 service agents, cutting the handling time in half didn't just mean people were working faster.
Right, it means hard cash.
Exactly. It translated to £2.3 million in hard annual savings, largely because the AI agents were resolving these complex multi-system queries instantly.
That's massive. What about other departments?
In finance and accounting, invoice processing speeds increased by 71%, and that came with a 43% drop in manual reconciliation errors. And perhaps most critically, in the supply chain, demand forecasting accuracy improved by 38%.
38% better forecasting. How?
The agents were catching subtle anomalies and data correlations that human analysts would routinely miss, especially when they're fatigued or just overwhelmed by massive spreadsheets. That 38% improvement allowed those enterprises to confidently reduce their held inventory.
Which frees up cash.
Exactly, freeing up nearly £1 million in working capital per company.
So the agents are actually acting as a safeguard against human fatigue. Let's look at how this mechanism plays out in a physical environment, though. The AetherLink guy highlights this really fascinating case study from Oulu, Finland.
Oh, yes. Oulu is a great example.
Yeah, Oulu is known for having this incredibly dense, robust tech ecosystem, heavy on advanced manufacturing, telecommunications, industrial innovation.
It serves as the ultimate high-stakes testing ground. I mean, if an autonomous system fails in a digital marketing campaign, you lose some clicks. If it fails on a heavy manufacturing floor, the physical and financial damage is immediate.
Right. So the guy details a mid-sized industrial automation firm operating in Oulu that was facing this crippling operational bottleneck. Their manufacturing floor equipment was suffering from unplanned downtime, and the cost was brutal. We're talking 15,000 euros per hour.
Just bleeding money.
Literally.
Yeah.
Under their old manual model, maintenance was entirely reactive. A gear grinds to a halt on the assembly line, and the company immediately starts losing €250 every single minute. Panic sets in, engineers scramble to diagnose the failure, they hunt down a replacement part in the warehouse, schedule an emergency technician. It's just a chaotic, expensive way to run a business.
And to solve this, the firm deployed the multimodal AI agents we discussed earlier. But they didn't just connect the AI to a spreadsheet of historical maintenance logs. They integrated the agents directly into the physical environment.
Using sensors.
Yeah. The agents were continuously ingesting real-time acoustic sensor data, analyzing thermal imaging feeds from the machinery, and monitoring vibration diagnostics. They were literally listening to the harmonic frequencies of the motors while watching their heat signatures.
And this is where that multimodal chef analogy really shines, right? The AI agent is correlating a microscopic, 0.2-degree temperature spike seen on the thermal camera with a barely perceptible change in the acoustic pitch of a bearing.
Exactly.
A human mechanic walking the floor could never synthesize those two disparate data points in real time. But the AI agent processed that correlation and accurately predicted component failures 14 to 21 days before the machine actually broke.
14 to 21 days. And crucially, the system didn't just send a passive alert to an inbox saying, "Warning, machine 4 might fail next month."
Because that would still require a human to coordinate the fix.
Right. The agent took autonomous action. It cross-referenced the warehouse inventory, discovered the specific spare part was out of stock, autonomously generated a purchase order with a supplier, scheduled a targeted maintenance window during a planned shift change, and rerouted the factory production load to other machines so overall output wouldn't drop.
That is just incredible. And the outcome of that proactive intervention is wild. The firm saw a 67% drop in unplanned downtime, which translated to €2.1 million saved annually.
Incredible ROI.
Yeah, and because the AI was managing the parts procurement so precisely, they didn't need to hoard excess inventory just in case, which freed up another €340,000 in working capital. Plus, the productivity of their human technicians increased by 34% because their days of running around putting out emergency fires were just over.
And, we should add, they maintained a flawless record of 0 regulatory compliance incidents throughout the deployment.
Huge point.
When you abstract the mechanics of that case study, it reveals a really profound strategic pivot. The technology fundamentally shifts an organization's posture from reactive to proactive. And that logic isn't confined to just industrial maintenance.
Where else are we seeing it?
We see the exact same architecture driving revenue generation. Look at how AetherLink's AetherBot platform approaches Nordic e-commerce. A traditional reactive automation system waits for a customer to abandon their shopping cart, and then maybe, 24 hours later, it sends a generic, "Did you forget something?" email.
Right, which we all just delete.
Exactly. But a proactive AI agent is constantly analyzing real-time consumption patterns, mouse movements, life cycle stages, and historical preferences. It predicts the exact moment a customer is about to abandon the cart before they even move their cursor to the close button. Yeah. It intervenes dynamically, generating a highly personalized incentive in real time. That proactive engagement architecture achieves a 34% recovery rate, effectively identifying at-risk revenue and securing it preemptively. On average, this increases total customer lifetime value by 23%.
Okay, with numbers like €2.1 million saved in manufacturing and a 23% jump in customer lifetime value, the immediate question any business leader listening to this will ask is, how fast can I get this running in my own company?
Of course.
If the ROI is this definitive, why isn't every enterprise fully automated as of yesterday?
Well, part of the answer lies in how rapidly the underlying development tools have evolved. The technology itself is moving at an unprecedented velocity. Modern development frameworks, specifically platforms like LangChain and Crew AI, are completely redefining the deployment timeline.
Let's unpack LangChain for a second because it sounds highly technical. Instead of an engineer writing thousands of lines of code to manually connect a database to an email server, how does a framework like LangChain actually compress the work?
Think of LangChain as a highly efficient digital project manager. Instead of hard-coding every single step of a process, developers give LangChain an overarching goal. LangChain then autonomously chains together the necessary tools.
So it figures out the steps itself.
Exactly. Maybe it queries in SQL database, searches the live web for a pricing update, and drafts a formatted report and figures out the required sequence to achieve the goal. And Crew AI takes it a step further by allowing multiple specialized AI agents to collaborate and even debate with each other to solve complex problems.
Wow.
Yeah. By utilizing these frameworks, what used to be a grueling 6 to 9 month custom engineering cycle to build a single AI agent has been compressed into just 8 to 12 weeks.
Okay, wait, I have challenged that timeline. An 8-week deployment sounds like an absolute vendor fantasy.
I know it does.
I mean, if you're a startup born in the cloud, sure. But let's go back to that mid-sized manufacturing firm. They're likely running their core operations on a 15-year-old ERP system. Half their critical supply chain data is trapped in disconnected, messy Excel spreadsheets scattered across different departments.
Oh, definitely.
The idea of seamlessly plugging a state-of-the-art AI agent into a digital infrastructure built before the first iPad was released seems impossible in 2 months. What about the chaotic reality of their legacy tech debt?
That is the exact reality check most enterprises need to hear. You are entirely correct to push back, because that 8-week timeline is purely for the agent deployment phase. It operates on the dangerous assumption that your data house is already in perfect order.
Which it never is.
Never. For the vast majority of legacy businesses, validating their data readiness is a harsh, sobering wake-up call. An autonomous AI agent is only as intelligent and reliable as the data it is trained on. If you unleash an advanced agent onto a foundation of incomplete records, siloed databases, and historically biased legacy data, it will simply execute flawed logic with absolute, unwavering confidence.
So you just end up automating your existing dysfunction.
Precisely. The hidden truth of these projects is that comprehensive data auditing and enrichment consumes 30 to 40% of the entire effort. You have to bridge the gap between ancient legacy systems and modern AI. This usually requires building API-first architectures.
Translators, essentially.
Yes. Think of these APIs as digital translators. They sit between your 15-year-old database and your new AI agent, translating the archaic code of the old system into the modern data formats the AI requires to function. But even beyond the connection issues, you have to address the quality of the data itself, particularly the issue of historical bias.
Right. How do you mathematically fix bias in a data set that a company has been collecting for 2 decades? You can't just go back in time and tell the sales team from 2012 to record their metrics differently.
No, you can't. You bridge that gap by generating synthetic data. This is where you actually use AI to create highly realistic, statistically accurate, but entirely artificial data profiles.
Wait, really? Artificial data?
Yeah. If your historical records have massive blind spots, maybe they underrepresent certain demographics or over-index on specific failure modes, you use synthetic data to fill in those gaps. This balances the overall data set, ensuring the agent learns fair parameters and doesn't perpetuate historical inequalities or operational errors.
That makes a lot of sense.
But even if you perfectly solve the API translation and you perfectly balance the data set with synthetic data, you still face an even more volatile hurdle: the human element.
We're talking about change management.
Change management is consistently the #1 reason these advanced AI deployments fail. These agents are not just shiny new software tools. They are actively displacing routine cognitive work that humans used to do.
Right.
If leadership does not communicate transparently about what the AI is doing, and more importantly, if they don't invest heavily in reskilling programs that transition their employees into higher value, strategic oversight roles, the corporate culture will violently reject the technology. The workforce will see it as a threat, find ways to bypass it, and the deployment will collapse.
It's entirely logical. You cannot drop an invisible autonomous agent into a department and expect the human workers to seamlessly adapt without a clear roadmap for their own careers.
Absolutely not.
But solving the data chaos and managing the human anxiety leads directly into our final and perhaps most critical topic. Let's assume a listener gets everything right. They build the API translators, they use synthetic data to balance their data sets, and they successfully reskill their team. They're still standing directly in the crosshairs of the law.
The incoming EU AI Act.
Yes. The enforcement timeline for the Act is accelerating rapidly. The phase-in deadline for high-risk AI systems spans from June 2024 to June 2026. As we mentioned at the start of the deep dive, the penalties for failing to comply are catastrophic, up to 30 million euros, or 6% of global turnover.
Massive numbers.
For a lot of business leaders, looking at those fines, the immediate reaction is that this heavy-handed regulation is just going to completely stifle all the incredible European innovation we just spent the last 20 minutes discussing.
I hear that all the time. It is incredibly easy to view regulatory frameworks as just a bureaucratic barrier. But to succeed in this landscape, business leaders need to completely flip their perspective. The EU AI Act is not a barrier to entry. It's a massive competitive moat.
How does the threat of a 30 million euro fine act as a competitive advantage for a business?
Because we are currently operating in a market that is fundamentally starved of trust. A recent 2025 Deloitte survey revealed a shocking vulnerability. 47% of European enterprises currently deploying or testing AI agents completely lack documented compliance frameworks.
Almost half.
Almost half of the market is flying blind, exposing themselves to immense regulatory and reputational liability. Enterprise clients are becoming terrified of adopting vendor software that might trigger a compliance audit down the line. If your business achieves certification and proves compliance early, you instantly establish ironclad market credibility.
You become the safe bet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You effectively lock out competitors who are too slow, too disorganized, or too reckless to build compliant architectures. In 2026, compliance isn't just a legal defense, it becomes your primary sales tool.
So if I am mapping out my IT budget for next year, what does that compliance actually look like in practical terms? What is the actual mechanism for proving to a regulator that an autonomous agent is legal?
It depends on the classification. But if you're deploying what the Act defines as a high-risk system, which covers critical domains like employment decisions, credit assessments, public safety, or managing critical infrastructure, the technical requirements are incredibly rigorous. The foundational pillar is absolute transparency. If a customer or an employee is interacting with an AI agent, there must be explicit disclosure.
So the era of naming a chatbot Dave and pretending it's a human in the customer service department is legally over.
Entirely over.
Yeah.
But the requirements go much deeper into the architecture itself. You must establish strict data provenance. You have to be able to cryptographically prove exactly where every piece of your training data originated.
Wow.
You need documented continuous bias testing to technically prove your algorithms aren't making discriminatory decisions. And crucially, you need comprehensive audit trails. If an AI agent autonomously denies a credit application or shuts down a manufacturing line, you must be able to produce a log showing the exact logical steps the agent took to reach that specific conclusion.
Building a system that constantly translates and logs its own decision-making process sounds phenomenally complex to build from scratch, especially for a company that just wants to, make heavy machinery or sell e-commerce goods.
It's a massive engineering burden, which is why the market is pivoting towards structured governance frameworks. The AetherLink guide heavily emphasizes the role of AI leads architecture practices. Frameworks like Aetherbot are specifically designed to abstract this overwhelming legal complexity.
How do they do that?
Think of these architectures as built-in legal translators. They sit between your operational data and the strict rules of the EU AI Act. They help enterprises map their existing workflows against the specific risk classifications of the Act.
So instead of bolting compliance on at the very end of the project and hoping it passes an audit, the compliance mechanisms are fundamentally baked into the AI's foundation from day one.
That is the key differentiator. These frameworks design compliant training pipelines that automatically generate those mandatory audit trails in the background. They implement continuous bias detection protocols. They enforce data retention policies that align seamlessly with both GDPR and the AI Act. And they automatically output the necessary transparency documentation for regulatory review.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. By partnering with compliance-native architectures, enterprises don't just reduce their legal risk, they actually accelerate their time to market because their development isn't constantly paralyzed by legal ambiguity.
This has been an incredibly revealing journey through the AetherLink research. We have covered a vast amount of territory, from the mechanics of multimodal agents listening to factory floors, to the hidden friction of legacy APIs, to the strategic advantages of the EU AI Act. Let's distill all of this down for the listener. Based on everything we've unpacked today, what is your single most important takeaway?
For me, the ultimate lesson here is that technological velocity means absolutely nothing without structured governance. The fact that modern frameworks can compress complex AI development cycles down to 8 weeks is genuinely remarkable.
Yeah.
But to truly capture market share in 2026, enterprises cannot afford to just sprint blindly toward deployment.
Right.
They must invest equal capital and energy into data modernization and rigorous EU AI Act compliance. It is the marriage of incredible speed and unshakable governance that will determine which companies thrive and which ones face devastating penalties. What is your major takeaway?
My takeaway centers on the sheer, undeniable power of proactive omnichannel engagement. For years, the business world has viewed enterprise automation purely through the lens of cost-cutting, figuring out how to handle a support ticket faster, or process an invoice with fewer human hands.
Yeah, always about shrinking costs.
Exactly. But these autonomous AI agents represent a leap beyond just saving money. They are actively generating new revenue. By giving systems the ability to predict what a customer needs before they click away or what a machine requires before it breaks, we're fundamentally changing the economic model of how a business operates.
It is a complete paradigm shift, but it's a shift that demands immediate action. The window to gain an early adopter advantage is still open, but it is tightening with every passing month.
Absolutely. If you are listening to this and you want to protect your margins, accelerate your digital transformation, and avoid stumbling into a catastrophic regulatory audit, the time to begin is right now. The AetherLink guide provides a very pragmatic roadmap start by commissioning a thorough readiness audit to truly understand the chaotic reality of your legacy data and your current compliance posture.
It's the only way to build a solid foundation.
Yep. Once the foundation is clear, run a targeted 8 to 12-week pilot in a high ROI, quantifiable domain like supply chain forecasting or customer service. Prove the value, manage the human transition carefully, and scale from there.
Couldn't agree more.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, slightly deeper thought to chew on. We spent a lot of time discussing that manufacturing plant in Oulu, where multimodal AI agents successfully predicted and resolved a major equipment crisis 21 days before it even had the chance to happen. If these fully autonomous predictive systems become the standard across all industries, if they are constantly fixing our logistics, optimizing our maintenance, and resolving our customer service issues weeks in advance, how will human leaders redefine their own value and purpose when the crisis management part of their job completely disappears?
That is a fascinating question to leave them with.
For more AI insights, visit etherlink.ai.